The Thousand Suns are coming, and so I figured it's time to look at all the kits, bits, proxies that you can use to get that model range to look a little bit more varied than it is right now. And of course I'm going to start with the Psychers because, you know, lots of characters in the Thousand Suns army, also the squad leaders, they're supposed to be sorcerers. And they look a little bit samey, all of them. So let's take a look at all kinds of models that you can use to proxy, or which bits you can use to make your own, or just really good bases for your own kitbashes. Starting here with Ahriman from 30k. I'm going to start with a couple of 30k models because these are well known. But this one, Ahriman, is a classic. I think a lot of Thousand Suns players already have him. He fits really neatly into the army. But we also have a regular sort of unnamed librarian. I think he looks cool too. I like that mace. It reminds me of the mace that the Zangor can have with them. So I think he could fit into a Thousand Suns army really well too. And then we have this guy, the Thousand Suns Praetor, a Terminator character. Nice if you want a base for a Terminator sorcerer. I think you could work with this one. I like the sort of crest that he has above him. The head, of course, the helmet, you know, you work a little with your Scarabocule Terminators, you can make something cool out of this guy. Then we have, of course, Magnus himself. Now, this base is a 60mm base, the scenic base, but the miniature itself, the guy himself, he can fit on a 40mm base. And so I think you can actually use him as a character. We'll get to what you can use Magnus for later on. You know, you might have a Demon Prince, because I think it's very Zinchen to have a Demon Prince sort of mimic Magnus on the table when you have Demon Magnus there as well, just to piss him off or to show him how far he has fallen. I think it's a cool story to tell with a Demon Prince. And then we have Magistus Amon, another named character from 30k. I think he could work well as a sorcerer or as a guy leading your rubrics too. Then we have a 30k Librarian Consul. I like him for this sort of pose that he has, very stoic, casting a spell, holding that axe. That axe, easy to replace with a staff or a kitbash or anything else that you like. I think there's space for a proper Thousand Suns helmet over there, and of course mutations and so on. And his armor is not so ornate, there's not a lot of stuff on there, so I think you can easily paint it in a good Thousand Suns scheme. Then we have the Esoteric Consul. He comes in this picture with just a hood, but you can also put a helmet on there. He has a little cap above him that's going to get in the way of that big Thousand Suns helmet, but I think with a little bit of cutting and sawing or just replacing the backpack, you can get a really cool sorcerer here. Then of course some Age of Sigmar characters and even demon characters that you can use to have a base for your kitbash. First we have the Curseling from Age of Sigmar. I think he's cool, especially just like the concept, not so much the miniature itself, because I think it's pretty clear that it's Age of Sigmar. You know, you could do something with the helmet and give him a backpack and he'll turn marine really quickly, but I just like the concept of having a whole body sort of grafted on top of his shoulder. Maybe you can work something with a regular Rubric marine and some possessed, for example. I think the idea is really cool. And of course we have the Gaunt Summoner. He comes with and without a disc. I think it's a good base. If you can replace the head, just the head, and give him a backpack, you have a really cool Thousand Suns sorcerer already. And then we have this warband from Warhammer Underworlds. This is a really cool sorcerer. I love him. He looks cool, very slender, very thin, and the little griblies that come with him are great for, you know, markers, tokens for your units, for special spells, and so on and so forth. I like him. He is really spindly, really thin bits and pieces. You can use them to kitbash your marines and your terminators, but the arms are really skinny. Then, of course, the Changeling. A good model to start with, a good model to work with. All those extra arms, put them on a Terminator sorcerer, you got something really cool going. Now, of course, we've got lots of other librarians and psychers in all kinds of other factions. I wanted to go through a couple of them that I think can be good bases for kitbashes and conversions. We've got Tigurius over here, who has a really easy pose to kitbash with. This T-pose with one hand here, one hand there, makes it super easy to just do a hand swap, give him a kitbash and a Thousand Suns staff. That banner you can change into whatever you like. He has the same problem as other librarians, that he has this hood over his head, so you would have to do some clipping and filing if you want a big Thousand Suns helmet on top of that. But you can always go for something of a Terminator helmet, a Scarabocule helmet, sort of plugged in there deep into the recesses. Now, another one I like is Mephiston. I think his pose and the cloth he has, that arm that is stretched out as a gun, could be just him casting a spell. There's loads and loads of bits in the Exalted Sorceress that you can use here. The sword, replace it for a kitbash or even a staff and have him cast a spell. The head, there's plenty of space up there for the big helmets from the Thousand Suns. I think you can make a really cool sorcerer out of him. And the other one is Astaroth the Grim. Now his body, it's a bit weird for Thousand Suns, but I like those wings. And my idea for a Thousand Suns army is to have every 5-man squad of Rubrics be different from each other, so that the sorcerer that is leading them is different from all the other sorcerers, and he sort of influences the Rubrics that come along with him, so that I can have some Egyptian themed ones, some death themed ones, some mutation themed ones, and so I have all kinds of different miniatures on the table that look different but all have the same function. And these wings, I think, can work really well on a sort of bird or an avian themed squad of 5 Rubrics. But this, I think, might be the best base for any sorcerer conversion, and that's Asmodite, the new model from Dark Angels. I think you can work with this really easily. The head comes off easily, the backpack is separate, so you can easily put a Thousand Suns backpack on there. The weapons, the hands are separate from the arms, so he has that sword and he's holding it, and it's a cut off at the wrist, so you can easily make him cast a spell. The other one is basically already holding a staff or a kitbash. I like the smoke effects. I love all the cloth that he comes with because it hides the armor, so you don't see that it's a Dark Angels armor, and there aren't that many Dark Angels icons on him, so you don't have to clean up too much. I think this could be one of the coolest sorcerer proxies, kitbashes that you can make for a Thousand Suns army. And of course, we got the Inner Circle companions from Dark Angels as well. They're good, lots of cloth, robes, you know, if you want to go for a more old school fantasy wizard style, they're really well. And you got, of course, the Banner Bearer. Banner Bearer, he's already holding a staff. You just need to change the staff head. He's holding out a hand with his pistol. You change that to a spellcasting hand, and you've got a really cool sorcerer. Now you have the standard librarian in Terminator armor. I'm seeing more and more conversions of this guy because, you know, people were waiting for what was coming with the new Thousand Suns box, and no sorcerer in Terminator armor, still got the old ugly one. And this is a pretty good base. It doesn't have too much Imperial iconography, doesn't have any real Thousand Suns iconography either, but you know, you can work with this at least. And you'll have the standard Terminator captain as well. He has the eagle on his chest, and there's a lot of stuff to clean up here. But hey, they are relatively easy to find. There's lots of these floating around from the Leviathan box set. And of course, we've got Abaddon. Now, I'm on a spree of kitbashing Abaddon into all kinds of different legions. I've got Word Bearers Abaddon, I've got Iron Warriors Abaddon, and I'm gonna work now on a Night Lords Abaddon, but I'm seriously thinking of turning him into a Terminator Sorcerer for my Thousand Suns. Because that big pose, again the T pose, is perfect for kitbashing. You replace the weapons, you replace that whole trophy rack that he has with something cool, maybe give him a couple extra arms, and you can make a really cool Terminator Sorcerer out of him. And then we have some chaplains. The chaplain in Terminator armor, I think he's good if you want to go for more of a death vibe with your, undead death vibe with your Thousand Suns. This guy is really good, and the pose is incredibly boring for a Terminator chaplain, but I think it could work for a sorcerer, standing more still, less, flying around, less charging. And I think with this pose you can work with it. And then we have the regular Primaris Librarian. Pretty cool, pretty simple. You just gotta get rid of the Aquila and that ram's head that he has on his shoulder. But for the rest, not too much Imperial iconography. And we have the Phobos Librarian. He, as well, very little Imperium on there. Of course, it's clearly a Phobos Librarian. He's very popular. Everybody knows what this miniature looks like. So you gotta do quite a lot of work to hide the fact that where he comes from. But again, he has his head to his hands to his head. He has a sword that you can replace with a kitbash or maybe a staff. I think it's a pretty easy kitbash to work with. And then we have this chaplain. I like him. Again, the death theme. If you're going for undead theme with your Thousand Suns, I think this guy could make a pretty good sorcerer. 2 hands separate from each other, easy to kitbash, easy to give a couple of weapons. And I just wanted to highlight the possessed here because they come with lots of mutations, of course. If you want to have more mutations in your Thousand Sons, which most Thousand Sons, they don't really have. These Exalted Sorcerers have a couple extra arms, weird claws, but most of your Rubrics and your Terminators and so on, they're pretty much mutation free, even though there are sorcerers in those units. And if you're looking for more mutations, these guys, the possessed, are of course the place to get them, just as the Exalted Sorcerers. Now, let's say you have your base from this. What do you need next? You're gonna need some books and scrolls. And if you say books and scrolls, the Empire Flagellants from the old world are the perfect box for getting these bits and pieces. They carry around parchment, even on sticks, on boards. They have closed books, open books. They really have everything. Lots of scrolls and little things that are very good for Thousand Sons kitbashes. Actually, they're good for all kinds of kitbashes. This is pretty much the only box I would buy. Just always have it in stock in my bits box for anything I need. Anything I kitbash, I usually have something from these guys. And yes, the Exalted Sorcerers come with some extra books and some things that you can use, but this is a really good set. Now, these are not the only ones. The other ones are the Plague Monks. They come with books as well. They carry this book around. There's scraps of parchments and scrolls. They're really cool to have as a bits box as well. And then we have the Dark Apostle, of course. Pretty popular kitbash base for a lot of Thousand Sons players already, because it's easy to do. You have space for the helmet, there's a burning book, you have the flames and the book all in one. That staff, that little rod that he has, is easy to replace with a big staff or a kopesh, and you get a couple of these servants with him. Nice. It's a really good starting point for any character. Now back to the books. The Grey Knights, they come with a lot of books that they put on top of their armor, sort of carrying it into battle, and I think that would be a cool fit for Thousand Sons as well. On their sorcerers or on their Rubric Terminators, the Scarpacle Terminators, those would be cool, carrying some books around as well. Especially also the book from the Kill Team Legionnaires, the regular Chaos Marine Legionnaires. They have this nice bound book that they carry around with them, and it's a really good addition to have in your bits box. Then we come to the Inquisitorial Agents. These guys as well, lots of books. I like that little servitor with the book that he has. I used it over here on my Word Bearers Abaddon as a sort of forbidden text that walks along with him. I would love to have 1 or 2 of these extra to put on my bases for my Thousand Sons. I don't have it. I'm not going to buy this box just for that servitor, but that scribe that you can see here in the bottom left, that one is pretty cool too. Now, next up we have the newest Kill Team release from Blood and Zeal. These guys have plenty of parchments and books and scrolls and things with them as well. I think this could be a decent collection of bits from here, and you could even consider using these guys as cultists, but we'll get to cultists later. Now, this guy, I really like him, the Code Write, because that row of books that he has on his back and the book on the left and right, they are all really separate from this model. They're easy to attach to anything else. And I wouldn't mind having a 5-man squad of Rubrics with a sorcerer that's really into books, like a walking library. And if the sorcerer is carrying books, then all the other guys need to be carrying books for him as well. So I wouldn't mind making a whole squad that's just covered in books, carrying books, books on their belts, books on their backpack, books in their hands. All of that all together in one squad. I think it would be cool, and this would be a good mini to get for that. And then we have the Dialogus from the Sister of Battle. They have loads and loads of books as well. You need to get rid of some of the Imperium iconography, but I think it can work. It's not too hard to clean up. Then, of course, these, I think you should know, the Gaunt Summoner. He has a really nice book with a flame coming out of it as he's poking it with a dagger, and the original Chaos Terminator model, the Terminator Lord and Terminator Sorcerer, come with a really nice book on his hip as well. And then we have the demons, the Chariot of Siege. This one comes with loads of books. I think this is a really good model to buy. Assemble it as the Chariot, however you like, and then get those books and put them all on all the other stuff. I don't think anybody would miss the books from this model if you play it as the Chariot, and the books would add a lot to your sorcerers and your characters and your rubrics and so on and so forth. And don't forget this one, the endless spells from the Tzeentch faction from Age of Sigmar, or now they're called manifestations. They're no longer called endless spells, manifestations. This glorious book with all the eyes in flames, I think it's a beautiful piece. Good for an objective marker or ability marker, you know, once per game ability or something like that, or a reminder for yourself to put it on something like a debuff, like a stratagem you use on opponents, or a stratagem you use on yourself, to remind yourself what you've used. I think these endless spells, these manifestations, are really, really, really good for that. Now, don't forget, I mentioned them before, the Exalted Sorcerers. They come with lots and lots and lots of extra bits, and some of them are books too. And from books we go to flames, because, you know, you have these beautiful mutating flames of Tzeentch, and we go back to the endless spells, because these, I think, would be good for flames as well. Imagine you have a nice big model, like a Vortex Beast, casting one of these spells. That would be pretty cool. But you also have the endless spells, the manifestations from the regular Slave to Darkness, the Chaos faction from Age of Sigmar. There's lots of nice flames in here too that you could use for your models, for markers, and so on and so forth. The Flagellants, you saw them with the books, you see them again with the flames. They have a guy whose head is on flames, they have torches, they have all kinds of flame little details on the minis as well. And all of these little bits and pieces are separate from the bodies of these Flagellants. So you can have everything you want, and then those bodies, you can still even use them as cultists too. The Legionnaire kill team comes with a really nice flaming hand, which is cool, and a flaming dagger, which is really cool as well. I like this combination. I wouldn't mind making, you know, 5-man rubrics that's all about flames, like the mutating flames, and then have one with a dagger, have one with a flaming hand, and just get a little bit of variety going there. Now, the Dark Apostle, I mentioned him before, the flaming book is really good, but we also have the Master of Possessions, and I think he is pretty cool. He has these flames on his back, but again, a flaming hand as well. It's a really good pose, I think, too, for a very active sorcerer, this sort of jumping up. You need to change the helmet, change the staff, get rid of the Eye of Horus on the legs, but I think you can make something really cool out of him, and I think the model without too many changes could fit really well in a sort of death-themed squad. So the skulls, the ram's head, you could make it maybe have a dog head or something like that, like a jackal head. And you can work with this if you want to make a death-themed Thousand Suns. I just want to mention these dwarves, the Fire Slayers, the Hearthkin Warriors, I think they're called, the Hearthguard Berserkers. These guys, you can't really see it well in any of the photos on the Warhammer shop, but they have these sort of flaming dragon mouths on the end of these axes on a chain. And I think they could work really well on backpacks, on shoulders, and maybe on the head of a staff as well. I think they could have some really nice bits in there. And then we go to Necromunda, the place for the best miniatures in all of Warhammer. And these guys, the Cawdor Redemptionists, I think they are really cool if you want to add some fire to your squads, and they could work really well as cultists too. So if you want to have a fire-based cultist squad and a mutation-based cultist squad, you have all kinds of different options. And they also come with this sort of character. I don't know anything about Necromunda, but this guy is sold separately with another big flaming head, and this flaming head is also what you have in the Empire Flagellants. So it's something that keeps coming back. And of course, the Exalted Sorcerers, we keep coming back to them. They have some fire effects too. And from fire we go to magic effects to really finish your miniatures. And you know, I have my Ahriman, he has no fire, but this part over here and the bit that's under his disc, those things, that's what I'm talking about. These wisps of magic, of smoke, who knows what it is. That's what we're looking at next. So here we've got the manifestations from the Ossiarch Bone Reapers, and I like these. There's lots of smoke coming off, but especially the bird in the back. I think that could be a pretty cool spawn, or maybe part of a demon prince. I think it looks really cool. But we have some more manifestations from the Night Haunt, and there's plenty of flames and fire in those too. The hourglass in the back is something that I think could work well for Thousand Suns too. You know, sand running away. It's something that works well with the whole theme. Then we've got these spirit hosts, very popular already with lots of Thousand Suns players who kitbash stuff as sort of spell effects or spawns or something that just comes out of an armor. It works really well. But I also like this guy, the Mortison Ossifactor from the Ossiarch Bone Reapers. That whole swirl that goes around him, and then that that head that is up there, I think you can replace that head at the top for something that's more Tzeentch, like a beak from the Lord of Change, or maybe from the Demon Prince, and you can have him sort of summon a Demon Prince as he is standing there. I think would be a pretty cool kitbash. Of course, not this guy. I mean, you put a Thousand Sun Sorcerer in there with that swirl around him. The Nighthaunt come with way more nice flames, wispy magic effects, and I especially like these guys, the Pyre and Flood Warband. They have so much flames and so many little bits and pieces there. I think there has to be something in there that you can use. These flaming heads of their staffs, for example, could be a really cool addition to any sorcerer. And we got this guy, the Coolgust the Curator. Coolgust the Cruciator. Yeah. He looks pretty cool too. I like the bottom part, those sort of wispy trails of his cloth. I think that could work as a spell as well. And we have this guy, the Scriptor Mortis. I love the book. That's already really cool. And then the magic that's holding up this book. If you have this Exalted Sorcerer over here that is floating, that guy, you could put him behind that book and sort of have him read that book or work from that book as he's casting a spell. I think it would be a pretty cool kitbash. And this one, Allrak the Drowner, I have him in here mainly for the idea. I don't think he would work really well in any Thousand Suns army, but I love the idea of a boat. You know, boats are very important in Egyptian mythology, in their religion and so on. And I think this could work as an idea for something Thousand Suns based too. Put a little sorcerer up front, have him cast all kinds of nasty spells, maybe some mutated Gribblies at the bottom. I think it would be cool. And Reichnor the Grimhailer. You know, anybody who wants to have really cool magical wings, these are the wings you want. You know, most people when they kitbash Thousand Suns and they want wings, they go for crow wings or really bird wings. But I think these would be really, really epic on a Demon Prince, for example. Maybe Helldrake, I think he's too small for that. But then finally, this guy, the Black Coach. I like him, especially for the horses. I keep saying we don't have enough chariots in 40k. I made an Ultramarine chariot a while ago. You can check out that video later. But I think these horses would work really well in combination with one of the chariots from the Tomb Kings. Of course, we'll get to the Tomb Kings later. The whole Egyptian aesthetic works really well. But I think these sort of magical horses, ghostly horses, could work together with those chariots. But let's take a look at birds first. Because there aren't many. You know, you have this guy from the Endless Spells that I already showed you. And you have a couple of these ravens from the Cawdor, the gang from Necromunda, the Cawdor Sheen birds they're called. I think they're nice. I wouldn't buy a box just for these guys. I would rather just go 3D print them. You know, Green Stuff World has some crows and birds. You can just order them in a little box and you get a bunch of birds for your kitbashes. But I like these guys, the Carrion from the Tomb Kings, because look at them. Something like this as a spawn, and then you paint it more bluish with sort of magical effects and still some bandages as if they're sort of mummified. I think you can make a cool Tzeentch mummy bird out of these vultures. I think they would fit pretty well. So let's talk more about the Tomb Kings, because this is a really, really cool range that has relatively recently been re-released by Games Workshop, and there's a lot of new plastic models in there. It's not all resin anymore. There are some metal and some resin miniatures, but there are some plastic things that could work really, 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 really well with Thousand Suns, I think. First of all, these Necropolis Knights. Now I'm going to use these guys to kitbash those new robots into, because you have this version, the Necropolis Knights, but you also have the Sepulchral Stalkers, which come with arms, with hands. And I think I can use those to put the guns on there and then, kitbash them into something of a robot. And yeah, the bases are super, super long, and that whole snake tail is something I'll have to get rid of, but that part that is standing up as a cobra, that I think could fit on the base for one of those robots. Next up, Settra the Imperishable himself with his chariot. That's what I talked about with the Black Coach. I mean, these horses, they look horribly aged. Settra himself, I don't know, but that chariot I think is cool. You could even make it a flying chariot. So, the burning chariot of Tzeentch. That, but then Egyptian themed. I think could work pretty well for converting some of your Tzeentch demons as well. Now, you got this guy, Prince Apophis. I really like him as a demon prince. Maybe as a spawn, but I think Demon Prince could work really, really nicely here. You might want to replace that skull for like a big bird head from the Lord of Change or something, or the Demon Prince, but he looks very, very cool. I kind of want to have him as my Demon Prince. And I wanted to mention these guys, the Ushabti. And I want to mention them as a sort of cautionary tale because these guys are made from metal. So it's really, really, really hard to kitbash these into anything. If you get these, I would just assemble them as they're supposed to be and use them as proxies. Great for spawns, I think. Great for, I don't know, maybe flamers. You know, they have the version with the bows. You can do something with it, but they're metal. So kitbashing with these, I wouldn't recommend it. But I like this thing, the Goliath Sump Croc. Not from the Tomb Kings, this is from Necromunda, but it's a crocodile. I mean, that's pretty Egyptian themed, I think, and I think he looks pretty cool. Something like this as a spawn might work for an Egyptian themed Thousand Suns army. But I also like these things, back to the Tomb Kings, the swarm, the scarab swarms. Nice for spawns, sort of magical effects. You can see that, you know, there's lots of little scarabs in there, there's lots of corpses in there. I think you can replace some of the skulls that are sticking out, like the guy there right in the middle that is sticking out, replace his head for like a Cadian head, replace some bits and pieces and paint it very deep in the miniature with a lot of bright blues, so it looks like some magic effect from Tzeentch rather than this sort of Tomb Kings effect. I think that could work really, really nicely for spawns. And we have this character from the Soulblight Gravelords, Sekhar, Fang of Nulamia. She is very, very, very spindly, very thin. I have this model myself. I play Soulblight Gravelords in Age of Sigmar. It's a really cool model. I really like the helmet, but it would be very hard to turn this into a real Thousand Suns Marine. It could work for something of a cultist or some other kind of caster, maybe a demon character, something like that. I think it's cool. I don't know if it's a very good option, but I want to have them mentioned anyway. Then we come to the Tomb Guard. These guys are really, really dated. The miniatures, the bones of all these Tomb Kings models are really old and they don't look that well, but I think that would be a really, really good source for bits. They have these nice big spear, Kitbash weapons, massive shields, the banners look cool, there's a little bird on top of there. I think you can use these to make sort of Egyptian themed cultists out of them. It's gonna be hard. It's going to be hard to make the old skeleton model work well with the sort of more modern miniatures from 40k, but I think there is something there. And I really would love to have a 5-man Rubric Marine squad with Kitbash and shield. Being led by some sort of sorcerer that dual wield Kitbashes. Something like that. I think it would be a really cool, fun squad to have, and these guys would be the source for my bits for it. And we have this battle standard bearer. I love him. I like the battle standard. I think it's something that could work on a Thousand Suns, maybe on a Rhino, for example. You know, you need some decoration for your vehicles as well. Otherwise, they just look like chaos vehicles. But I like him. Mutalith Vortex Beast somewhere on the back could work with this guy. Speaking of Mutalith Vortex Beast, I'll get to the last chapter pretty much where I talk about really big stuff, big monsters that you can use for the Vortex Beast, Forge Fiend, Mauler Fiend, and maybe your tanks if you're, you know, willing to go that far with your Kitbashes. But I really like this thing, the Necrolith Bone Dragon, not so much for the Bone Dragon, but for that whole pulpit on top where the guy is standing. Now imagine a Thousand Suns sorcerer standing there looking out on the back of some mutated beast, maybe on top of a Mutalith Vortex Beast himself, and sort of casting his spells and doing his magic and sort of encouraging the whole legion. I think it would work really, really well. But I think this is going to be my Vortex Beast. This is the Necrosphinx from the Tomb Kings. And he comes on pretty much the right base size. The Vortex Beast is a little bit bigger. This is 100 millimeter long. Vortex Beast is 120 oval base. But I think it will fit. He has these big claws up front, which is part of the Vortex Beast as well. And then I could put something on his head. Like I would chop off his head maybe and put a Thousand Suns sorcerer on there to be the source of magic and mutation. But you can assemble this guy in a different way, in a War Sphinx way as well, where there's this little box on his back carrying stuff around, like sorcerers or, for example, a Casket of Souls. I don't know what it is. I really like this miniature. I think I'm gonna get this anyway just to paint it myself because I just love what it looks like. But this could be something that you carry around on your Vortex Beast, for example. And then I just want to have this guy mentioned. I don't think he's great, But the Scorpion from the Tomb Kings, I think, is a decent model as well. And you could make him into something of a disc of Tzeentch. Put your sorcerer on top of there, have him fly around on the body of the Scorpion. You'd have to get rid of the claws, but you could keep that tail. I think it could work. I've got to see if I'll actually order this because it's resin, so it's much harder to work with than plastic. So, after the whole Egypt themed, let's go look at some more individual units. Starting with cultists. Now, cultists, the one we have, they're not great. The Chaos cultists, I think, are good for Black Legion. They might be okay for... well, I don't know what else they would be okay for. But definitely not for Thousand Suns. I would go with these guys, the Kyric Acolytes from Age of Sigmar. These are the Tzeentch regular dudes from Age of Sigmar, and you get 20 in a box. So you buy one of these boxes, you're done with all your cultists for your Tzeentch army. But what might be a better option is the Spearhead for the Tzeentch faction from Age of Sigmar, because you get 10 of those cultists, you get 10 Zangor. I mean, you know, everybody loves Zangor, right? And then you also get 3 Screamers and 3 Flamers. So you get your demons in this box as well. And you get this Magister on a really, really cool disc of Tzeentch, making a nice sort of surfing move. I can see myself ripping him off that disc and replacing him with either a Zangor, you know, Zangor Shaman on a disc, or even a Rubric Marine and make him like a proper sorcerer on a disc. Because all of these discs, they're all really stable. You know, Ahriman has a little bit of a tilt going on his disc, but the rest is all just perfectly flat and they're just standing there summoning. And I like the movement of this Magister on his disc of Tzeentch. But other cultists that I think would work really well are the Accursed cultists, the little guys. They come with lots of mutations and I think they will look really cool. But yeah, there's only 5 in a box. So, you know, those bigger guys, you could use those for your spawns, of course, and maybe even upgrade them to Demon Princes, although they might be a little bit small. But yeah, it's going to be a bit pricey if you want to get, I don't know, 10, 20 cultists this way. You're going to buy 4 boxes for 20 cultists. I'd rather buy that Spearhead from Age of Sigmar twice and get 20 Zangor, 20 cultists, 6 Screamers and 6 Flamers, and 2 of those Magisters for bits. I think that's a much better way to go. Don't forget the Dark Commune. Also, you know, with the Accursed Cultist come these guys. Keep in mind, the guys with the big swords are on 28 mil bases, the other guys on 32 mil bases, so you need to work around a little bit, put them on 25 mil bases, but I really like that monster on the staff. That's clearly some kind of horror come from the warp, really Tzeentchian. The banner, not so much, but you can replace that. But I like the tentacles and the mutations and the stuff that come with these guys. We've got Traitor Guard. It's not in the codex right now. I'm recording this before the codex comes out, so who knows? Maybe you'll get Traitor Guard with Thousand Suns, but I highly doubt it. But I think Traitor Guard could work. They could work for really any faction, and they're always good to have. And then these guys, the Thralls from the Warcry, Soulblight Gravelords Warband. I like them. They have a little bit of an elven aesthetic, but it makes them just a little bit light and a little nimble. Lots of nice flowing robes. They lack a bit of this Thousand Suns aesthetic, but I think if you paint them proper blue and gold, you're getting there. And they have this one mutated monster that could function as a spawn as well, or just as one of the mutated cultists, who knows. Now, a friend of mine uses the Delac gang from Necromunda as cultists, and they work really, really well. These tall, gangly little dudes, they function perfectly as Thousand Suns cultists. You paint them bright blue, you're halfway there. But I also wanted to point out these guys. Again, there's only 2 models in a box. I don't think people are going to buy 10 of these boxes just for these 2 guys, but I really like them, and I immediately had a sort of Tzeentch vibe, especially with the guy with the staff. He's weird. I wouldn't mind picking up one of these boxes to just mix them into my cultists and make cultists a little bit more diverse. You know, all these cultists, they're all so samey, and it's not for me. Then we get to the Nighthaunt. So, like I said, you can have different themes in your Thousand Suns armies. You can go all Egyptian themed. You can go more death themed. You can go mutation and Tzeentch themed. I'm going all of them. But I wouldn't mind having some of these Chain Rasp as cultists if I'm going for a death themed army. Just ghosts tagging along with the Thousand Suns. You also have these guys, the Reapers. These are on 32mm bases, but the attachment point of the miniature onto the base is so small you can easily put them on 25mm. You got them with swords instead of scythes, and I really like these guys, the Glaive Raid Stalkers, because of the beast-like sort of goat dog head. ties in a little bit more with the Egyptian theme. And then you have these dread sides, harridans. I like them as well. I think you can work quite a lot with the heads. Get rid of them, make them a little bit more modern, a little bit more 40k. And those scything talons, I think, fit the Thousand Suns a bit better than just a ghost with a sword or with a scythe. And I again want to mention these guys. They are so cool. Maybe I should just get this box and just paint it for myself. But I think these are so cool that I can't not mention them. And then we have finally the Flesh Eater Course Crypticals, because I will get to a miniature and I'll reference back to these guys, but I think you can go for a more mummy-themed cultist swarm and then mummy-themed spawns and mummy-themed demon prince to fit in with that Tomb King's aesthetic. Now these guys, they don't look like mummies, but if you get a lot of green stuff strips and you sort of wrap them around them, I think you can make some decent looking mummies that are still sort of bent over and feral and mutated. Stick a couple extra arms on them, make them look more like Tzeentch mutated mummy monsters. I think it could work, and you get 20 in a box, so it's a pretty cheap way to get your cultists done. Now from cultists, let's go a step up to spawns, and this is a standard one. The spirit hosts, I think lots of people use these as spawns already. You buy 2 boxes, you have 6 spawns, you're done for the rest of your life with Thousand Suns spawns. Now this is the guys I was talking about, the skin wolves. I love how they look. The heads don't really look like wolf heads, in my opinion. They look more like jackal heads, so they fit that Thousand Suns, the Egyptian theme, really well. And if you don't paint those strips as skin, but you paint them as parchment, you have mummified jackals walking around with your army. I think this could work incredibly well as spawns for a Thousand Suns army. If you focus on the sort of mummy or Tomb Kings or Egyptian aesthetic, I think these might be the best spawns they have. But I also quite like these awful hounds. Awful hounds, the blue ones. And I think, again, you add a lot of strips of parchment to them, they could become sort of zombie dogs. I mean, look at that thing, he's carrying some weird stuff with him, painted as if it's a magical creature, like a magical mummy, and you have a pretty cool spawn as well. I mentioned them before, the accursed cultists, they come with these big monsters too. You can use those as your spawns, of course, paint them nice and blue. You got your Tzeentch sort of mutated nastiness. But I also want to mention these Ossiarch Bone Reapers. This is a Warcry warband. I quite like those flying sort of mini dragons, but I also quite like the dogs. I'm not 100% sure how I would use this. This might not be a great kit for Thousand Suns, but I just like the aesthetic of these guys for Thousand Suns. Who knows? Maybe I'll get an idea later. But you got these Margast Archi. These are quite popular already as demon princes, but they could work as spawns too. Replace the head, work a little bit with some magic effects, paint them a nice bone and Thousand Suns army color. You could change the weapons into something more suitable and you have pretty cool spawns. And these guys, these always work for any Chaos Legion to have as spawns. It's the harpies and those weird bird-like, dragon-like things. I don't know what they're called. Some weird name. I think if you paint those nice and blue and magical, like a blue Tzeentch demon, you've got some really, really cool spawns for your army. And these guys, the Ogroid Thaumaturge, he's a bit big. He's only one guy in a box. I think he fits better as a demon prince, but I still wanted to have him mentioned here. And we've got the Chaos Trolls. We go back to the old world. They are really nasty mutated. He's got like a face on his belly, the heads, everything. There's weirdness, there's stuff sticking out. I think with the right bits and pieces, you can make some really nasty chaos spawns out of these guys. And I wanted to have this guy here, the Escher Chimerics. Is again one model in a box. But I think the whole Chimera, it just works for Tzeentch, man. And the whole monsters coming together, it's really, really cool. But these guys, the Ruinstorm Demon Brutes, this is something from 30k. I really like these two. I think these guys, if you go for more the demonic, mutated direction with your spawns, these might be the best. And then those Skin Wolves might be the best if you go for more an Egyptian-themed army. But these are pretty cool. I had no idea these existed. I found these on the Warhammer website while I was browsing for this video doing the research. Now, going from the spawns, one step up in base size, we get to the Demon Princes. Starting with this guy, because I mentioned him just a minute ago. I think he would do really well as a Demon Prince. Maybe you can even give him some wings. You can work with the bits from a Demon Prince box and make him look more 40k as well. But I also like this thing, the Mindstalker Sphinx, or Sphinx, what it's called. This thing from Warcry as well. That top body, that cat, the feline head, works of course fantastic for an Egyptian themed army. And he's a bit big, but I think it could work. And this thing, the Wilder Fiend. An amazing base for any Demon Prince. Add wings to him, add more mutations to him, maybe a little bit of armor. You can do a lot of work with him and turn him into a really cool Demon Prince. He's big though, keep that in mind. And we got this Centaur Marshal, again from Warcry. The extra arms, the weird horns, there's nastiness all around this model. Makes him a pretty good Chaos character. He's very archaic, you know, it's a Warcry model, it's lacking a lot of the 40k bits and pieces, but I think there is something here with this guy. You can work with him, you can make something out of him. And then Kretusa the Croneseer. I kitbashed her into a sort of a tiny Lord of Change. If you want to check out that video later, I'll have it somewhere in the description for sure. The wings are perfect, the base is perfect, there's crows on there, there's this sort of plate for, you know, making prophecies, making little incense burning, there's little magic effects going around. I gotta say, my kitbash, it was okay, the paint job was mediocre at best, but I think I'm gonna give it another go, because those wings, they are absolutely amazing for 1000 Suns. We go back to these Morghast Archai. Like I said, they're a little bit big for spawns. They might work as Demon Princes instead. And this thing, the Hydra from the Dark Elves from Warhammer Old World. Or this is now Age of Sigmar still. Maybe they'll go to Old World someday. But this thing, the base, as you see it here, is really big. But that thing is actually really tall and can actually fit on a 60mm base. But you're playing with a model that's about this high. So, yeah, you gotta play with people who accept these sort of height differences in the models, and they're okay with you proxying something this big for a Demon Prince. I think the Obliterators might be good Demon Princes for Tzeentch as well. They're really big and muscular, so, you know, they fit Khorne maybe a little bit better. But the whole mutation, this whole Space Marine turning into a monster is something that works well with the 1000 Suns. And I think it shouldn't be too hard to get a couple of wings on there and make him look more demonic. The paint scheme does a lot in these cases too. And I gotta mention him, Vashtor. I always feel bad for Vashtor. He was launched with so much fanfare and then he disappeared. And nobody plays with him because he's horrible on tabletop. But he is a great source of bits for your Demon Princes. And I mean, if you want something Tzeentch that, I don't know, it's a nasty monster. If you replace those wings with some, you know, big bird wings, you have a really cool Demon Prince that I think fits Tzeentch pretty well. The hammer, you work it out, replace it with a nice staff, a magical staff. That claw is good enough. A big flamer with a claw works for the 1000 Suns too. And you can have a pretty cool 1000 Suns Demon Prince right there. But this guy, the Vengorian Lord from the Soulblight Gravelords, I think the body there is always good base for any Demon Prince. I'm going to use this guy in a couple weeks, who knows how far away, but I'm going to use this guy to kitbash a Night Lord's Demon Prince for sure. But I think he could work as a 1000 Suns Demon Prince as well. And this Prince Apophis, I mentioned him already when we talked about the Tomb Kings, I think would be a really cool Demon Prince to have as well. Or, you know, maybe I can figure out some way to replicate this with scarabs coming out of the ground and then sort of half a bird body, maybe a Lord of Change, or maybe the Demon Prince only taking the top half and having this sort of smoky scarab body give him some height. I don't know, there's something there, right? And then we get to large stuff. This isn't anything in particular. I don't really have things in mind for these models of what you can use them for, but it's just really nice big models that I think you can adapt to make Mutalith Vortex Beast, maybe Forge Fiends, maybe Mauler Fiends, if they're still going to be in the Codex, who knows. But they're also just really cool Demon Princes and just nasty big spawns. Maybe you are not that happy with Magnus and you want to replace him with this thing, the Gobsprak, the Mouth of Morg. So this is from the Age of Sigmar range, from the orcs, the nasty swamp orcs. I like him because it's a bird, and birds work well with Thousand Suns. You replace that head with something more of a Lord of Change. You put a nice Terminator Sorcerer or just Ahriman on top of that thing, and he is surfing a nice bird into combat rather than his disc. And you have a nice proxy for Magnus. I think it would work. And this thing as well, the Swamp Boss Scumdrag. I like that monster. I like the plateau that he has on top of there. There's a lot you can do with that. You can put your casket of souls on there, put a couple of sorcerers on there, put a couple of cultists around it on the base, and you can have this sort of crocodile-like monster thing, wrap a lot of green stuff around there that makes it look like it's a mummified monster, and you have a really, really cool Mutalith Vortex Beast. They're large though, these things, but the Vortex Beast as well, so I think it could work. And we have Abraxia, Spear of the Everchosen. I took this beast, this monster, because again, I like the idea of a sort of crocodile, dragon-like monster if I'm going with a Tomb King's aesthetic. If I'm going for the Egyptian stuff, then having some kind of mutated, overblown, oversized crocodile in the army would just be really, really cool. And that bone crocodile from the Tomb Kings, I'm not a fan of just having walking skeletons. I'd rather have something mutated, something demonic, rather than just a walking skeleton. And this thing would fit. Yeah, I think you can easily change that upper body of the human that sits on top of it, turn it into a Thousand Suns sorcerer. No problem. But I also like this thing, the Mortis engine. There's 3 versions of it. I took the picture of the Mortis engine because I think it illustrates best what I would like to do. But this whole sort of dais, I think, can work well. Replace the Necromancer, put a Sorcerer in that place, work with those horses down there, turn them into maybe something else, some demons or something. Lots of magical effects on this, lots of flames, lots of flying ghosts and spirits. I think I can make this work at some point. Then, monsters. Chimera. I like him. Again, avian theme, big wings. There's a bunch of nice, nasty heads. You are going to have a Manticore as well, and you can have the Manticore with or without a rider. So you can put a saddle on there, and you can put a sorcerer on top of it. You can have Golrog, the Great Drake, super old Chaos Dragon. I think he looks cool. I think he would work well as a Demon Prince. I think he would work well as Vortex Beast even, maybe. Who knows? We have this thing, the Warp Fire Dragon, again from the Slaves to Darkness, from the old world. I think it's a nice base. I like the wings. I like the head not so much. Turn it into a bird head and you've got something pretty cool as Demon Prince or nasty big spawn. And speaking of nasty big spawn, there is the gigantic spawn. Again, a good Mauler Fiend proxy maybe, or a Vortex Beast replacement. I think that could work. And then the Beastmen, they just teased them at the Adepticon, the new models. Here is a Phaeton, which used to be a stag, and now it's completely mutated and malformed. And these beasts, this thing, the Jabberslide, this is nastiness. This is chaos. This is pure feral chaos. Mutations, animals, chimeras turning into multiple kinds of monsters. And I really like this thing, the Cockatrice, because it has all of those aspects of Siege that I like. It is the bird, it's the snake that fits with the Tomb Kings and the Egyptian aesthetic. It has all the bits and pieces of what I can see a Siege demon becoming if it's purely Siege demon. I'd see if I can get some armor plating on his chest, maybe on his arms, maybe some chains and stuff, something to make him a bit more 40k. But I think this thing would work really well as a Demon Prince. Now there's a few Thousand Suns models left that I haven't talked about, so let's take a look at those. And most of these are from 30k, but I want to have them mentioned anyway. I don't think they fit anything particularly well, but I want to have a pretty complete video and have people not come back to me and say, hey, you forgot this model, you forgot that model. So we have here the Sekhmet Terminator Cabal. The Thousand Suns Terminators from 30k. They're okay. They got some pretty cool weapons, nice Kitbashi. You could buy these and turn them into Terminator Sorceress and have something more unique instead of a Scarab Occult Terminator. Could work. The Osiron Contemptor Dreadnought. I like him. If you're doing a Thousand Suns Hellbrute, this might be a really, really, really cool base for a Thousand Suns Hellbrute. All you have to do is get the gun, because the gun doesn't come with this model. You can get a Hellbrute weapon on there and get something that's not so nasty and mutated and more a proper construct. But speaking of constructs, we have this Castellax with an Ether Flame cannon. There's 2 versions. You can build them both, and I think this could work as a Hellbrute. You could work as a demon prince as well if you want to go more in the constructs direction. You know, I haven't really talked about that because there aren't that many options. But the constructs direction I think works well. And I wanted to show you these things. This is the upgrade sprue with Kitbashes. But I'd recommend against getting these because if you want Kitbashes, there are a few. There's a couple in the Exalted Sorcerer's box that you might not use because you're going to give them staffs and so on. But there's also one extra in the Terminator box. And, you know, if you have, so one extra for 5 Terminators, if you have 10, 20, let's say 20 Terminators, you already have 4 extra of these Kitbashes, and you have 1 or 2 of these boxes, you now have 10. You'll have 6 or 8 extra Kitbashes. Like I said, I wouldn't mind having a 5-man Rubric squad or even a 10-man Rubric squad with shields from the Zangor and the Kitbash. I think it would look really cool. But I don't think it's worth it to buy this box just for these weapons. I think the other ones actually look better anyway, the ones from the Terminators and from the Exalted Sorcerers. After that, we have this Contemptor upgrade body for the Thousand Suns. Not bad, not anything special. We have the Rhino doors for the Daimon Rhino. So this is not for the 40k Rhino. Don't go buying these and thinking they'll fit perfectly. They're cool. You can make them fit, I'm sure. You can. It's a very nice, cool scarab to make your Predator tanks, for example, look better. If we still have Predator tanks, let's see. Then we have some Mark 6 heads and Mark 6 shoulder pads. And I wanted to have these guys mentioned as well. This is the Jade Obelisk. It's from Warcry. It's the Tzeentch Warcry band. I really like that weird mutated chicken they have with them. But for the rest, I don't see how I can make this work unless there's lots of weapons I could put onto these hands and so on. But it's just easier to buy a bunch of those cultists from the Age of Sigmar Tzeentch faction rather than these guys. And finally, the transfer sheet. This is the 30k transfer sheet, so it doesn't have a lot of the iconography of 40k Thousand Suns, but I still think it's really cool. This for your rhinos, for your predators. I think you can have some really, really cool looking decals on there. Look at the ones at the bottom left over there. There's nice scarabs. If you don't want the wings, you can do the wings separately. You can cut them apart from each other and just get the scarab stuck on all of your vehicles. I think it's a pretty cool transfer sheet to get if you're really gonna go the vehicle direction with your Thousand Suns. So that's all of the stuff that I could find that I think is a good fit for proxying, kitbashing, converting Thousand Suns characters in particular, but also a lot of the other units. And like I said before, I'm gonna use those sepulchral stalkers from the Tomb Kings to kitbash them with the new robots because I'm not a big fan of them either. And I think the Egyptian themed, the sort of mummy spawns, the flesh dogs, that's sort of the direction I would like to go with my Thousand Suns army. I guarantee you I'm going to make at least 1 or 2 videos for the Thousand Suns. So if you want to see them, you got to subscribe. And don't forget, join the Discord. I've also got a Patreon up and running now. And you can join that and support the channel. And I'd love to hear from you guys what your ideas are for kitbashing Thousand Suns. What did I miss? What should have been in this video that's not there? Leave it in the comments below so other people can actually find it. If you got some really good suggestions, I'll collect them in a pinned comment or just pin your comment if you're the only one who comes up with some really cool finds. I hope you enjoyed this video. In the meantime, check out this video next.